What is up? This is your good friend Patrick O'Dowd. Dave, I don't know. Are we streaming live? Are we just doing this recording? We just recording?
We're allegedly streaming live.
All right. Well,
I will effort that as you go along here, sir.
Dave is going to effort that. We think we're streaming live here. Welcome in, everyone, to this week's edition of the Four Corners podcast. Patrick O'Dowd coming to you. We think live along with David Ungar. We are here as a part of the new and improved Chairshot Radio Network, a part of the chairshot.com, where we remind you to always use your head. I am back after a week off. Dave, did you guys do a Four Corners last week?
We did a Four Corners last week.
I did not listen to it.
It went a little bit too long, which is kind of why Bandwagon Nerds was a little truncated.
I see. Because it was just you and Tunney, right? Like there was no Ray Cash.
Right, but we did a full preview of the NHL and the NBA playoffs and
fun stuff.
Yeah, sort of.
And that's the thing, folks. We have quite a fun show to talk about. We have 1 week of the NBA playoffs in the books. We have a week of the NHL playoffs in the books. Teams that we expected to do better than what they're doing, notwithstanding, there's some surprises in both playoffs. We're going to talk some baseball, and of course we got to talk about the NFL draft as that just happened. Yesterday, as we're recording this on Sunday, if you're listening live, and no surprise, Fernando Mendoza goes number 1. That was fully expected. He's going to the Raiders. That dumpster fire that it is. I'm not going to go like point by point through the entire draft. It's really interesting to me, and I can't remember who I was listening to, but they made a really good point. I want to say it was on a radio show. After these drafts happen, punditry comes out and they make bold declarations about how teams performed and do draft grades, and those are done because they get clicks and likes. Like people are going to read those. It's a quick and easy thumbnail way to just get a sense of how somebody feels about your team's draft. And just using my Chicago Bears as an example, there's people who give the Bears an A for their draft. There's people that give the Bears a C- for the draft. The reality is the draft, and you can try, and I'll have you chime in. The draft is the crapshoot. Like you have needs and positions that you're looking to draft and fill, and you're taking a chance on your scout that these guys are gonna be who you project them to be. And I love the connection following college football into the pros. This is kind of where I end my intense attention to professional football, because the Bears have just done nothing but disappoint me for so long that it's never been worth it. But it's all about evaluation and fit and needs and what a team thinks that player is going to do. But every player that is drafted is a gamble. Just like every player who doesn't get drafted is an undrafted free agent, also a gamble. You don't know until the talent's on the field and they show what it is. Now, all that being said, my favorite thing about the Bears draft is Ryan Poles has yet to find an NFL draft where he doesn't draft a tight end, because for some reason that man is in love with the tight end position, and we drafted another. Now, he wasn't the first pick that we did. We picked safety out of Oregon. That is a position in need, is going to be a plug-and-play starter. Thieneman is his name. He looks like he's going to be really good. Again, you don't know. He could be a bust. For every LaDainian Tomlinson, there's a Ryan Leaf. So you never know. But we feel pretty good about this guy. He was a very high-performing safety. And the goal for the Bears in particular, as I talk about my team and the focus of my team, was very much about the defensive side of the football. Like the Bears defense last year was very much predicated on turnovers and being able to generate turnovers. They didn't get a lot of 3-and-outs or force teams to punt as often as you would like them to. And so they really needed to shore that up. And so they did things like, the thought was it would be looking for a defensive tackle, maybe an edge rusher, somebody on the line. If there was nobody there that was worth the first round money, it was then to look to the secondary, to the safety position. And Thieneman was projected to be picked much earlier than he was. He was predicted to go in the teens. And so to have him there in the 20s when the Bears picked, it was almost a no-brainer and worked out great for them. And then the rest of the draft really needed to focus on the trenches and the lines. Needed to get stronger on the trenches and the lines. For the most part, they did that. But of course, we had to draft a blocking tight end because again, Ryan Poles hasn't found a tight end that he hasn't wanted to draft. So I guess you get a little bit of grace when your team makes the playoffs for the first time in forever, and you win a playoff game for the first time in forever.
Yeah.
But the defense is still a big question mark for this Bears going into next season. They drafted some guys to help address that. I still think they got some work to do. Dave, do you watch the draft? I guess that's the first question. Do you watch the draft at all?
I watch some of it. Like I usually I watch most of the first round just to see what teams are doing. And then after that, I just kind of get alerts and that sort of thing. So, I know other
3
commanders did.
hours.
Yeah,
3
it's a lot.
hours for
It is a
round
slog.
one.
It is a slog, that is for sure. Yeah, for the most part, I know you want to talk about our last draft pick, but I liked it what the Commanders did in the drafts. Getting Sonny Styles at 7, that's the guy they wanted. I think, you've got him and Shanae now that they picked up in free agency. I forget they got the edge rusher from Tennessee in like the 5th round or something, who's going to be good. They got a wide receiver out of Clemson that they desperately need to put next to Terry McLaurin. I think, most of the, listening to the Commanders pundits are very excited that our defense will look drastically different than last year. Cause I agree. Like one of the guys I watch, he said that the Commanders defense was horrendous at the end of the season. And there's no disputing that. They're going to be a lot faster and a completely different sort of defensive team this year. But I guess like in the first round, I thought like the New York Jets had 3 picks in the first round. And I thought that they did pretty well with those picks. I mean, we're talking about the Jets, so but like you're saying, you don't know. I mean, the draft is the roll of the dice.
Right.
And for every, top draft pick that you think is going to manifest destiny into like, Saquon Barkley or something like that, then you do get the Ryan Leafs, and you're always looking for the Joe Montana, the Tom Brady, the 6th round pick that comes in and lights the world on fire. So, did any teams get that? I don't know. But
right. Well,
I don't think our 7th round pick will qualify for that. But
well, okay, and Dave and I had this conversation before we started. So in the 7th round, the Commanders drafted a quarterback. They drafted Ethan Kaliakmanis out of Rutgers. Before he was at Rutgers, I do believe he was at the University of Minnesota. Big Ten quarterback who has a big arm. He has a really good arm. Can run, but isn't a pocket. He isn't a running dual threat quarterback. He's more of a I guess what you would call in NCAA football terms balanced. Like he can run if he's in it. He could run the option on occasion if he wanted to. But the dude was not what I would call a winner. And that was the thing is Rutgers threw for more yardage than they had in like any season. They were one of the top passing teams in the Big Ten this past year, and they didn't make a bowl game.
Yeah.
Or if they made a bowl game, it was like a 6-win bowl game. And this is where the measurable Olympics, the tape Olympics comes into play, because this is a guy that has quote unquote measurables, big arm. He wasn't always the best decision maker. He threw plenty of picks his day until Rutgers. I think he was much better about protecting the football. He had 2 receivers that I do think got drafted as well that were like high quality receivers. And I'm not saying he's bad, and I'm not saying he was going to be a professional quarterback, and this is my University of Illinois bias, like University of Illinois quarterback Luke Altmaier, who led Illinois to more wins in the last 2 seasons than they've had in forever, a bowl game victory over an SEC opponent, went undrafted. And by all accounts out of the combine, his stock was on the rise, and he was never projected to be like a 3rd round pick or anything. Like he was projected to be like a 6th, 7th round guy. But it really does goes to show you the knock on Altmaier was his arm strength and his size. He's not undersized, but he wasn't the tallest guy in the room either. The thing that's funny to me is those and then again, this is somebody who's watched him play. His ability to improvise in the pocket, to make throws. The guy was a gamer. The guy was really good at making plays when his team needed it. And you need to look no further than this year's Music City Bowl against Tennessee. Tennessee takes the lead on Illinois late in the game, and not an Illinois fan was worried because we were like, we have Luke Altmaier. He's going to get us down the field to get a game winning score. And sure enough, drove Illinois down the field, got him into field goal range, lined it all up real nice, win. The guy is a winner. He's a leader. He was signed as an undrafted free agent to Detroit, but for me personally, I wish he would have got drafted. And when I see a guy like Ethan Kaliak-Manis, who is shown repeatedly to not be the greatest leader of men, I question that. I feel like that's, but we're not in the scouting room. We're not doing the evaluations. We're
Yeah.
not those people. And so, good luck to the Commanders. I hope he works out as a backup quarterback for
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. He's probably not going to see the light of day because you got Jaden Daniels and Mariota. Well, I don't know. Did Mariota resign or did he go elsewhere? I
you.
don't
Well,
remember.
and again, Mariota's not exactly like
Yeah,
tearing
he's
it up.
serviceable. He's
Right.
serviceable, but he showed this year with Jaden Hurts so much that he's not the answer. He can do some things, but yeah, I think like the other, and it pains me to say this. I'm looking at the other teams in the NFC East, and the Giants and the Eagles and Cowboys all got better, and the Giants probably
Yeah.
significantly so.
Right.
Well, I don't know
If
about
they can
the
stay.
Eagle. Well, I love like Philadelphia does. The Eagles are so funny because they're like all the rumors about Antonio or Brown getting traded to the Patriots, right? And they say no, no, he's an Eagle for life, that sort of thing. He's part of our team. And then they go and they steal a wide receiver. They trade up, steal a wide receiver from the Steelers, draft another wide receiver somewhere else. Like, oh sure, Brown's a Eagle for
That
life.
moment, by the way, where he's thinking he's going to the Steelers, and then he's like, "Why is Philly on the phone?"
Yeah, yeah.
That's good stuff.
Yeah, there's no issues between Philadelphia and Pittsburgh in any sport right now, so it's
Yeah,
kind of
it's fine.
it's it's kind of fun. But I thought the draft was good. I do like a lot what the Jets did because I thought they got great value for those 3 first-round picks, and they really kind of transformed their team. And God knows they need it, but
Right.
the Browns,
The big thing about the Jets is they've just been such a shitstorm of management.
yeah,
Like,
they can't find.
I don't trust the Jets any further than I can physically throw the entire team
Yeah.
because their track record shows they can make good decisions and still screw it all up. And so until they prove it, I don't know, bro.
Well, the Jets' biggest problem, and I can relate, is they have not been able to find a quarterback since Joe Namath. I mean,
Right.
it's been a long time since the Jets had a franchise quarterback that they could rely on. I mean,
They
of
had
course,
Chad Pennington.
Chad was good. Chad was good. They had Vinny Testaverde, and then
They
he
had
got hurt that
Testa.
one that tested. But I think like they made the infamous Ken O'Brien pick, which my dad, who was the biggest Jets fan that I know, decried that pick till the day he died, literally. And so the Jets are still looking for that leader that they can
That's
rely on,
fair.
and they just haven't had that. But I don't know if they got that this year or not. We'll find out about that.
Yeah, who knows? And who knows for any of these teams? This is the best time. This is the best thing about this time of year. And it's the same thing. Yesterday, I attended the University of Massachusetts football team's spring game and just wanted to check out the practice, see how it went. And I made the joke on my Facebook post of the picture of the practice. Hope for a 2-10 season springs eternal at the spring football game,
I
and
saw that.
Hope springs eternal. Well, when your team won 0 games and was the laughing stock of college football, being like, "We're gonna win it all," and kudos to they do the spring game. They had the captain, the team captain, hop on the mic afterwards, thank everybody for coming out, and said, "I'll tell you, this isn't going to be the same team it was last year. We're gonna fuck up we're gonna fuck up the God, I can't remember what conference they're in.
Aren't they in like the
The
eight
Mac,
Atlantic?
the
The
Mac,
Mac, yeah.
the Mac. We're gonna fuck up the Mac, and I'm like, cool.
Okay.
The best thing about him saying that is they were doing a children's clinic for 3 to 12-year-olds, and they're all standing on the field while this dude is saying we're gonna fuck up the Mac. I'm sure he got words from his coach after that, but I laughed. It's good. You know what? But hope springs eternal, and that's the same
Hmm?
thing with the NFL draft. Hope springs eternal. You know where hope is not springing eternal though, Dave? The
Yeah.
city of Boston, as yesterday in a bombshell of a news. I'm going to read it just so that I don't get it wrong. The Boston Red Sox, after beating Baltimore 17-1 or something like that, they won by like 16
It was
runs, have
17-1.
have fired manager Alex Cora, hitting coach Peter Fatsi. I don't know if that's right. Bench coach Ramon Vasquez, third base coach Kyle Hudson, and game planning coach Jason Veritek. Sources tell Jeff Passan. They cleaned out the whole fucking locker room. And one of my favorite comments about it came from a local media member, does a post for Ness, and I sent it to you this morning. Woke up to a text from a former Red Sox player who summed up Saturday's moves. It's like shitting your pants and changing your shirt. Now, I do. The Red Sox are in last place right now in the American League East. It's still early. Like we're 20. We're like a month into the season games wise. We're
Yeah.
coming up on 30 games. So they're like 10-17 or 10-16. Like they're not playing well. They're not very good. And I'm not saying that making changes at the coaching level is warranted. The history of Alex Cora as manager of the Boston Red Sox is tumultuous to say the least. Everywhere from World Series appearances to being in last place in a 7-year tenure, and to fire everybody. But the real problem in Boston, and you even noted it, Dave, is again like it is with so many organizations. It's a front office problem. This has happened ever since they got rid of Heim Bloom as general manager, and the Cardinals scooped him up because they made him do things like get rid of Mookie Betts
Hmm.
and then blamed him for getting rid of Mookie Betts. He was like, "But you told me to get rid of Mookie Betts, so I did." And Bloom, oddly enough, over in St. Louis, is doing okay. The Cardinals are an interesting enigma in that they have like the worst run differential in baseball. They give up the most runs. They don't score the most runs, yet they're over 500 right now. I don't expect it to last, but right now technically the Cardinals are doing okay, and and it's been led by a complete overhaul of the minor league system, which still has a lot of work to do. There's not a lot in the cupboard down there, particularly on the offensive end. Pitching, there's some young pitching down there that they need to develop. There's not a lot of great pitching, especially in the bullpen for the Cardinals right now. But there's nothing to call up that would help it either. But there's a lot of young talent that's being built, and Boston got rid of that model. They didn't like that model because there's so much pressure in Boston
Hmm.
every year to compete with the Yankees, win National League East titles, and go to the World Series and win the World Series. And they haven't been doing that. And so we threw the entire baby out. We threw the baby out with the bathwater. It is an empty shell. Reports everywhere right now is about how the talent one didn't know this was coming, that the talent is really upset about this and how this went. Like not bueno, no bueno, no bueno, Dave.
No, it's and in the title of this episode, did the Red Sox panic? And you got to look at it and say,
One
yeah,
thousand percent.
1000% they panicked. And I mean, I get it. I'm looking at the standings and it's like they're 10-17, you're 8 games out of first place, but we're not even a quarter way through the season yet. So you can't look at this and say it's anything other than the front office panicking right now. I,
Right.
but like you're saying, the Red Sox are, if you are the manager of the Boston Red Sox, like the manager of the Yankees, you're going to be under a different kind of crucible right now. And they are failing pretty badly. But yeah, the timing of that is like you just dog walked the Baltimore
Well,
Orioles and you turn around and fire everybody.
but to me is, and this is, they do, hockey does this all the time too, right? Like we make
It
jokes
does.
about it. Like a month into the season, like 3 franchises will like fire their coach. They won't fire the whole staff. Like they won't do that necessarily. They'll just usually fire their coach. And so I just always wonder when it comes to these kind of decisions, what was worth keeping them for the season in the first place if you were going to fire him like a month later.
Yeah, they were all obviously on a super short leash, and that
Right.
leash ran out really quickly. I gotta say though, man, when you look at, like you're saying, with hockey weeks, it's not so infrequent that you see these early season coaching changes, or this season, shockingly late season coaching changes. It's like, what are we doing here? But you don't see that in baseball too much. But if you're looking at two, I was like looking at the standings today when I said, well, how bad is Boston? I was like, oh, they're pretty bad. And then I'm looking at the NL East, and I'm looking at the New York Mets, who finally snapped a 12-game losing streak. The Philadelphia Phillies finally snapped a 9-game losing streak. The Phillies were an NL favorite. They're 9-18 right now, and I'm looking at them saying, Rob Thompson, you probably need to have eyes in the back of your head right now, because I mean, Carlos Mendoza of the Mets as well. But I think the Phillies are really interesting and problematic, because you're talking about a favorite who just is doing nothing this season. I mean, the NL East is over already, Pat. I mean, the Braves are up by like 9 games on the Phillies. They're up by 5 on the Marlins. The Marlins are a decent team, but they're not going to catch the Braves.
Now, never say never. I won't go that far, but it is like the Mets in particular, and this is the second year in a row that the Mets have thrown cash at their roster. And they missed the playoffs last year, and they're awful this year. The Phillies, it's an established core that's just, maybe it's age. Maybe there's some more going on there that we don't know about. But both of those teams, there's an article on CBSSports.com right now that's like struggling teams in their panic meter, and Phillies at a 9, the Mets are at an 8. These are franchises that, again, expected to perform better than what they are, and they're just not getting it done. And when you're not getting it done, like then ownership panics. So will we see more managerial changes? I don't know. We'll wait and find out. What it's fat. Like, this is such a Boston thing. There's no answer. I can't even remember who's managing the team today. And the Red Sox are gonna get fucking crushed today. I bet you, I would be willing to bet money the Orioles handle their business against the Red Sox. And it's gonna, like, because everything is going to overshadow the rest of the Red Sox season. Every time they play on national TV, they're going to talk about today or yesterday. Yeah. They're going to talk about April 25th all season. Like, that's what it's going to be. And that's a distraction. And that was an unnecessary distraction. If you didn't believe in Alex Cora and his staff, fire him before the season. I never understand if you kick off a season and fire somebody during the season. To me, that is stupid, especially a month in. Especially a month in. So, all right, we got to take our first commercial break. When we come back, we're going to take a quick look at the playoffs, both in the NHL and the NBA. A lot of fun stuff going there, so stay tuned for that. If you're listening live, it's just going to be me and Dave staring at you for 30 seconds.
Well,
or do you have
actually, we're going to – I think I got a commercial to play.
I keep forgetting that we put the commercials in the studio, because I'm what you would call, kids, a casual at the Chair Shot Radio Network. I'm a casual. I tune in during the World Series. That's what I am.
You show up, you do your job, you leave. Wreck everything and leave, right, Pat? I got you.
I don't even wreck everything. I am just the number one chair shot villain, as noted on my screen. So, anyway, stick around. We will be right back after this quick message. Talk a little playoffs before we roll on out of here. You're listening to the Four Corners podcast here on the Chairshot Radio Network, part of the Chairshot.com.
Why should you visit thechairshot.com? Thechairshot.com is your home for hard-hitting reviews, news, opinion, and analysis with attitude. Why? Because you're smarter than the average fan. Thechairshot.com. Always use your head.
Welcome back, everyone, here on the Four Corners podcast, or to the Four Corners podcast here on the Chairshot Radio Network, a part of the Chairshot.com, where we remind you to always use your head. Patrick O'Dowd, David Ungar, talking all four corners of the sports world. Make sure you check out ProWrestlingTees.com/the Chair Shot for all of your Chair Shot swag needs. A lot of good stuff going on the website today. Let's talk NBA playoffs first, Dave, because I think we both agree we are less adept on that side of the sports world. And here are the things we're just going to do a quick thumbnail. What stands out to us in these NBA playoffs? For me, I'm going to start the Minnesota Timberwolves up 3-1 on the Nuggets after yesterday's victory, led by Ayo Dosunmu off the bench, scoring a 40-piece, going 10-10. He was like perfect for the free throw line. He took over a game after Anthony Wright? Anthony Wright goes down with an injury.
Edwards.
Anthony Edwards goes down.
Yeah.
Wright's a different person. Anthony Edwards goes down with an injury. One of their other big scorers ruptured his Achilles tendon a day before. So they're really down some guys, and their bench has stepped up. Had a little bit of a fracas. Jokic didn't like how a player for Minnesota put a layup in when the game was in hand with about 12 seconds to go. I think that's as much him trying to fire up his team as it is any sort of slight done by the player. Like that is, we're down 3-1. I need you guys to wake up. But that was my biggest surprise. That has been the one. Like I like Minnesota. They're good. They're a young team. They're hungry. I also didn't expect them to be up 3-1 on Denver after losing two of their superstars.
Yeah, and it's Defenso. I'm trying to remember.
Yeah, it's like DiVincenzo or something crazy like that.
I think for me, and I think there's a lot of speculation about how bad Anthony Edwards' injury is, and if he's not going to play, okay. So that just the latest update is Anthony Edwards avoids a ligament tear, but he's looking at being out for a few weeks.
So the door has maybe the conference finals, if not the finals at best.
Right. Well, yeah. I mean, I don't know if you get to the conference finals. I mean, and although Denver's down 3-1, when Minnesota's down two of their best players, that opens the door to Denver maybe getting some momentum and getting a comeback. To me, there is no bigger surprise than the Orlando Magic being up 2-1 on the Detroit Pistons. I did not, Tony and I had talked about that last week. We gave Orlando no chance, especially with Cade Cunningham coming back healthy. Right. But, they lose game one, they come back in game two, and then they can't do much of anything in game three. Orlando takes that. They're up 2-1 with game four at home. Yeah, I think the panic meter's got to be really high in Detroit right now.
Right, but it's only a 2-1. It's only a 2-1. It's a 2-1 deficit. You still have time, and all of that panic goes away, by the way, if
they win game four.
Right. They win game four, even up the series, and all of a sudden everybody's like, oh, they're riding the ship. What do you think about the Lakers beat up 3-0?
I was going to mention
LeBron James discovering the fountain of youth, apparently.
Dude.
You look at why are you mad?
The Lakers being up 3-0 on the Rockets, I did not give them much of a chance in this series. I know a lot of people did not with Doncic on the bench, and just them being a shorthanded. But I mean, look, when you're up by they were up by like 6 points, Houston, with like the last minute of the game or even less than that. And
it was like 30 seconds ago or something.
and you know, like we talked about it a few weeks ago at the end of the Duke UConn, the title game, right? Where Boozer panicked in that moment, or not the title game, the Final Four game, where Boozer panicked in that moment and he gave the ball away when he should. Huh?
It was an
the
Elite Eight game. Yes, because UConn
right.
beat Illinois in the Final Four. Thanks.
That's right. Sorry, I didn't mean to remind you of that.
Way to bring up old wounds.
But you watch the end of that Lakers Rockets game, and there is a similar panic that the Rockets. It's like it's a young team that didn't know what to do in that situation, and that's on coaching. And you got LeBron, who is one of the greatest of all time. I'm not going to say the GOAT, but he's certainly on the Mount Rushmore. You could make the argument. And he, like you're saying, he turned back the clock. That guy's 41 years old and just schooling people out there. And it was, it's great. And if the Lakers get all that people back, if they can get Doncic back and all that sort of stuff, who knows? I don't think anybody's challenging Oklahoma City, who looks unstoppable. But but yeah, I think it's the stuff. The Sixers got an unlikely win over the Celtics, and then the Celtics did what the Pistons couldn't do, went into Philly and took care of business. But it's interesting so far. But I mean, the overriding thing is I don't see anybody challenging Oklahoma City right now. They just look on a different level.
Right, and I will say that it's in the East, it's Boston until it's not. So we'll have to see what happens there. All right. I only have one thing to talk about in the NHL playoffs that I've followed so far, and that is the Pittsburgh-Philadelphia series, where Philadelphia has just come and slapped Pittsburgh upside the head. Pittsburgh the Pens did get a win. It's 3-1, and that's all Pittsburgh can do right now is try to focus on the next one. Because it's an uphill climb. But you commented on this to me. You texted me, and we're just like, holy crap. And I'm like, Philadelphia basically punched Pittsburgh in the face game 1, and they didn't recover for 2 games thereafter. And suddenly here we are. The Philadelphia has been the more hungry, aggressive, physical team, and they show it. And that series is the one that everybody's talking about. And whether that's because it might be because it's Sidney Crosby's last series, playoff series, as well as just that people expected Pittsburgh to kind of handle this, and they're not, to me, that is captured outside that and the Sabres making the playoffs. Those were the two storylines, and Kurt Russell's kid doing a polar plunge because, Wyatt agreed. He made a promise and he did it. He jumped in, did the thing. So, and then I actually haven't seen how Buffalo's doing, but
they're up 2-1 right now.
Yeah, so they're having a good run. But yeah, Philly and Pittsburgh, that's the one NHL playoff story I have today.
Well, you look at, I think Tony and I mentioned it last week because they had, after we recorded right after game 1 was in the books. Philly's block shot stat is disproportionately large to Pittsburgh, and that's a sign of being willing to do what needs to be done to win. We've talked about it many times with hockey. If you're getting down and you're taking an 80-mile-per-hour piece of galvanized frozen rubber in the groin, then you're probably trying to win. And Philadelphia has been more willing to do that than Pittsburgh is so far. Best series going on right now, well, there's 2. Dallas and Minnesota, which we knew was going to be epic. And that's 4 games have happened, and I think they're tied 2-2. 2 games have gone to overtime. Right. I told Tony last week, Montreal and Tampa Bay was going to be a really fun series to watch, and I am glad to say I am right about that. The Habs are up 2-1 right now. I know that surprises some people. I'm not one of them because I saw the Canadiens I saw them last year in the playoffs against Washington, and just what they've done this year with Caulfield getting 50 goals. They can play with anybody in the East. Now, Carolina gets a nice rest after sweeping Ottawa. The Avs aren't far behind from sweeping the Kings.
Yeah, they can close out. They can close out tonight or this afternoon if given the chance. So we'll have to see.
I love the NHL playoffs this year because you've got some new teams in there. You've got some fresh blood. The Ducks are playing the Oilers really tough.
Yep.
And, so you get to see some of these new teams that are going to be problems for the next few years. Buffalo is going to get better. Whatever happens against Boston the rest of the way, they're going to learn an enormous amount about themselves from this series. So I'm loving the NHL playoffs so far. There's good competitive matchups. even the Hurricanes sweeping Ottawa, it's a sweep, but like a couple of those games went to overtime. You know, so Ottawa played them tough, that sort of thing. But yeah, Carolina looks like they're going to be a real tough team to beat, especially with their arch nemesis, the Panthers, not there. So the doors swung wide open for Carolina right now, and we'll see if what Tampa and Montreal come up with. But the playoffs have been a lot of fun so far. Just
And there's a
it.
full slate of games today, starting right now. Actually, I think the first puck drop is at 2. And anyway, that's sorry, I got distracted. We'll get back to that in a second. Anyway, yeah, we'll be back next week. We'll be looking at both the NBA playoffs and the NHL playoffs as they move forward. Some series are going to be closing out. We're going to be moving on to the next round. Yeah, and so with that, I think that's all I got, Dave. Unless you got something for sports, because the only other thing I talk about is PBA bowling. Another major is Tournament of Champions is today. So exciting. Jason Belmonte in the stepladder final, which is always good for the sport. He's probably one of the most recognizable names. And if he wins it, it will be his 5th Tournament of Champions win, which is more than anybody in history by far. The very few people have ever won it twice, let alone 4 times like Belmo has, and going for a 5th. So why don't you tell everybody where they can find you and how to follow you out there in the interwebs?
Yeah, best thing to do is go to attitudeofregression.com right now. That's the best way to get in touch with me. You can follow me like on Blue Sky at Attitude Ag, but check out the Attitude of Regression's YouTube channel. And I guess after last night, go and look at the Facebook page for Attitude of Aggression, since I live stream an episode of Unidentified History through there.
I saw that.
Interesting. I didn't even know I could do that, but I guess you can. So maybe we'll do more of that.
Cool. And you can follow me on the social medias at Wrestling Realist. That is at WRESTLNGREALIST. You can catch me every Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday on the Chairshot Radio Network. Mondays talking nerdy stuff with Dave, PC Honey, and Ray Cash. Tuesdays talking sports with my buddy Dave. And Wednesdays talking wrestling with Craig DeMarco when we feel about it or feel like it. That is going to do it for this week's edition of the Four Corners Podcast. Be sure to catch us next week. Till then, enjoy the playoffs, everyone. It is a good one. This has been the Four Corners Podcast here on the Chairshot Radio Network, part of the Chairshot.com.